cap one end with your thumb, you'd come up and you'd have a bunch of milkshake in the straw. Well, hypodermic needles do the same thing, except the milkshake is a little piece of skin called a skin plug, and it shoots right into the same blood, or the same test tube that your blood went into.
Okay.
Now, studies have shown that that setups that use a skin plug diverter, which diverts the first milliliter of blood, getting rid of the skin tube, the skin plug, have 20% less contamination than not. Which, when you're dealing in issues of reasonable doubt, 20% is huge. 20% is huge.
Yeah, no shit. That's somebody's life. You want to play, roll Russian roulette with a 5-chambered revolver, or 6, or 200. So yeah, 20%. Ridiculous.
Yeah. And these preservatives, even when they're properly mixed, they don't work. And they don't work because they weren't intended to preserve it for the times that these blood samples sit for. Like, Neil, let me ask you, how long do gray top tubes just sit around between being filled and being tested?
Well, I mean, in a laboratory where the entire chain of collection is reasonably competent, a gray top tube arrives to our facility on ice and then gets processed so that there's no degradation of any of the sample. But I mean, we only use gray tops for like I said, lactic acid tests. So we do an ETOH test, but that comes on a green, and we just pulled the serum off of it. We don't use whole blood, so it's a completely different system. So everything you're saying is freaking me out.
Yeah. Sorry, my dogs were barking. Got a little distracted. These tubes will sit for weeks or months. Or months. Mayo Clinic out here guarantees that when they draw your blood in a gray top tube for a glucose test, your blood will be tested in 15 minutes because they are that concerned about the degradation.
Well, yeah, especially glucose.
It's bananas that these tubes sit for months and months and months and months.
That's not
and
okay.
All of that
we
time,
throw out stuff after, max 7 days because it's not viable. You can't really use it for anything.
Yeah. And so the internal standard made by somebody else, the controls that teach, or the calibrators that teach the machine what the different blood alcohol results are, made by somebody else. The controls, which supposedly double check the math and make sure the machine's reading how it's supposed to, made by somebody else. The labs do no independent verification as to the veracity or the reliability of these controls. They just accept them as true, which may be scientifically proper in some contexts, but when you're talking about people's lives, I think we need to do a little bit more than trust the sticker on the bottle.
That is wild. I mean, it must be really easy to work at a state lab where they do this, because you just don't have to give a fuck. You just have to give a number. I mean, you could just make it up. Just write 4 on shit, and it doesn't matter.
So
whatever.
So one thing that I'm not super familiar with, but I'm going to talk on it anyway because I'm a lawyer and can't resist it. The error rate. They bake in a 20% error rate on everything, and that's supposed to be an error rate that takes into account a whole bunch of various factors, but they don't actually do the math. They just assume 20%, so they don't have to do the math. But other people,
and when you say they, you mean
the
labs or the state? Okay.
Yeah, the labs, the state labs, and other defense attorneys and other people have done the math and quantified the error rate, or the risk of contamination from keeping the samples for so long, for not ensuring that they reach a stable temperature, from not checking the controls and calibrators, for not properly servicing the machines, for all these different factors, and they've reached confidence rates of 40-50%. Where This number, it could be what it is, or it could be 40% higher or 40% lower.
That's, oh my God. Who's the organization overseeing these laboratories? Because I know hospitals go under the Joint Commission. There's also the College of American Pathologists for like medical laboratories. Is it just another state agency?
The Arizona Department of Public Safety, which hands down gets the most money from NHTSA to combat DUIs. They have all their troopers on the road, specially trained to do DUIs, and that's what they're looking for.
Wow. So it's like having the judge and the prosecutor be the same person in a sense, to draw an analogy.
I was watching a trial the other day with a colleague, and the prosecutor asked one of the expert witnesses why Arizona certified the Intox 8000, which is the bullshit breath machine we use to convict innocent people. And the witness was able to truthfully answer because the VP of sales for the company that sells the Intoxilizer was married to the procurement officer for the Arizona Department of Public Safety. Yeah.
That's some third world Banana Republic shit.
Now, to be clear, I have not independently verified that, but I am just repeating what was said under oath by an expert criminalist who has worked for the state for many years.
Okay, yeah. I mean, none of this is on you, but, fuck.
Yeah. And again, this isn't to say that police don't catch drunk drivers. I mean, like, I'm a DUI attorney. Let's be honest. A lot of my clients were drunk. My past clients, all of my current clients are completely innocent.
Yeah, of course.
But they do catch drunk people. But it's like a tuna fishing net. You cast out this wide net, and you get a bunch of tuna, but you get a lot of dolphins. And while ordinarily I am 100% supportive of tuna fishing because I hate dolphins, in this case, the dolphins are innocent people who should not be punished for crimes that they probably didn't commit.
Yeah, we've got some fans of your analogy in the chat. So.
Oh, which one?
A beaker is like, oh my God, that is like the worst analogy ever. Hey man, fuck dolphins. No, I'm kidding.
But no, it is. They cast a wide net and they catch a bunch of innocent people because while their tests do detect drunk people, they also detect a whole bunch of sober people. And when you ask these cops, when you interview these cops about their horizontal gaze nystagmus test, they don't know a fucking thing about anything. They don't know the anatomy of the eye. They don't know how many muscles are in it. They don't know what a saccadic movement is. By the way, remember nystagmus is they're looking for jerkiness in the eyes? Well, a saccadic movement is when the muscles of your eyes switch over. So you're looking left to right, and then you're looking up. As the muscles switch over, there's a jerk. This is called a saccadic movement. And no officer I've ever talked to knows what that means. Has no idea what it is, and they have no idea that they actually induce it by the way they improperly administered their horizontal gaze nystagmus test.
Is it the point in the conversation where we bring up the that one court ruling about how they are allowed to, it might be a state level thing, but how they're allowed to discriminate against people who score high on intelligence testing? You heard that one?
No idea what you're talking about.
Oh, you got to look that up. Yeah, it was a court case. I don't know if it was state or federal, but basically a cop sued because they refused to hire him because he scored too high on the intelligence test. And they thought that would be a reason why he was likely to question procedures and policies. And so he sued, and they ruled in the favor of the agency discriminating against him because
that makes sense.
His intelligence. So
I mean that makes sense though, because being intelligent is not a protected class. You can discriminate all you want against non-protected classes. Like you could be like, I fucking hate everybody who wears a green shirt. If you've ever wore a green shirt, I will never hire you. That's totally fine.
Wow.
People who wear green shirts aren't in a protected class.
Or redheads, or I don't know, Irish. But no, wait, that's a protected class. But
Yeah,
holy
national origin.
yeah.
Yeah,
This is a depressing conversation.
it is, and that's why, like, literally, I drive like a grandma, because any minor infraction can get you pulled over, and then failing these sobriety. Like, let's say you smoke weed, right? Like, let's be honest, a lot of people smoke weed. Like the residual metabolites can be in your blood for up to 30 days.
Yeah.
And I'm talking like delta 9 active metabolites can be in your system for an incredibly long time, but they're obviously not impairing you. The thing with THC is the way that your brain absorbs it is, if it's in your blood, it's probably not impairing you because it needs to cross the blood brain barrier.
Yeah.
So like what you'll see on blood tests when they in the studies is, THC is concentrations really high, and it's really low, and then it's really high again as it kind of starts to move out. But THC is also fat soluble, so if you've got a little extra around the middle like I do, as you start to sweat or do anything to burn off any of those fat cells, they're also going to be releasing nanograms into your blood. Again, it's not enough to impair you. Yeah, it's not enough to impair you, but in states that have just zero tolerance, like Arizona used to be no tolerance. If you had metabolites in your blood, it didn't matter if you were stone cold sober, you were guilty of DUI. That changed for pot relatively recently. But these can stay in your blood for a long time, and they get you, right? Because they pulled you over for a bullshit reason. They put you through their bullshit test that everybody fails. They arrested you, took you to the station, and the best part, implied consent laws. So by having a license in most states, you have given your consent to a test of your blood, breath, or urine when an officer has developed reasonable suspicion to suspect you of DUI and has arrested you for DUI. And if you don't consent, then your license gets revoked for a year, regardless of whether you have nothing in your system or not. You could be stone cold sober, nothing could come back, but you still lose your loss. So you get to the station and you are gonna give a sample, and then that sample, even though you were stone cold sober and were not impaired in any way, has some metabolites. It could be 5, it could be 4, it could be 3, it could be whatever. But
unless you're just straight up shredded, I mean, like ropa vieja shit, no body fat.
Yeah.
I'm trying to inject some levity into this because it is bleak.
It's it's hard. It's real shitty.
I'm just glad I don't smoke weed. I can't because I'm still technically in the military. So
yeah,
that's not.
But that's just one example where it's insane. And here's the other thing. There's absolutely no correlation between impairment and the level of THC in your blood. There's no correlation. People with 20 nanograms have been stone cold sober. People with 2 nanograms have just been blitzed. There's no correlation. And those bullshit field sobriety tests that are supposedly standardized and validated have only been standardized and validated for alcohol. And what I always like to say to juries is, on cross-examination is something like, well, Dunkin' Donuts is standardized, right? Like you order a Dunkin' Donuts in California, you're going to get the same way that you do in New York, yeah? And then I kind of hit on all the stuff they did that deviated us. It can be brutal.
Nice. I like that because that appeals to police. So
yeah, it's a little jokes,
some authority,
a little jokey.
I like that.
But they're standardized and validated, and I say that with the heaviest of air quotes, only for alcohol. But they use them to show that you're impaired by other things. Oh, he did terrible on these. He's impaired by drugs. He did terrible on that. He's impaired by drugs. But there's no correlation, and there's never been any studies that quantify or validate them for detecting impairment by drugs. Even NHTSA couldn't get these studies, and they will fund anybody who will say whatever they want.
Ooh. Yeah, see, I'm coming to even more of the conclusion that nothing in our society is structured in a evidence-based manner. Like, our entire legal system is just like, fuck it, here's what we think, okay, and just goes from there. So obviously one of us has been to law school, and it's not me. So damn, is that addressed at any point? Are there people actually studying this shit and making the case for evidence-based criminal laws at every level of the process? And who are they, and can we follow them on Twitter? Besides you, obviously.
Well, a lot of the only ones I'm really quite familiar with are the ones here in Arizona. The Arizona Attorneys for Criminal Justice, they're in the legislature every session fighting for criminal justice reform. But in terms of stakeholders, what really kills criminal justice reform is lack of buy-in from the prosecutors. The prosecutors have so much power at the legislature. They're looked at as such authorities, and whatever they say goes. Whereas defense attorneys, we're looked at as, people who are just saying whatever we want because we want to make our lives easier. And I mean, that's not the case. Everybody in the system should want a more fair and just system, which means the guilty people being convicted fairly and with due process, and innocent people being acquitted. Nobody is against that. Nobody thinks that every criminal should be walking the streets, and certainly nobody would ever support somebody being drunk and then driving a vehicle. But the process needs to be fair, and where science is involved, it needs to be reliable and repeatable and replicatable.
Yeah. I mean,
words.
Wow. It need to work same time over and over. Yeah, I know. That happens to me a lot.
I mean, that's literally what these lab techs do, is they just pipette all day, and then the machine runs after they leave for the office. And these machines are so sensitive that if the janitor bumps into them, it'll cause an issue. If there's a power surge, like I cannot describe how unscientific and like any scientist that did not have a vested interest in just upholding the system would shit themselves if they saw how fucking crazy it was.
I'm still stuck on the cop phlebotomist thing, because fuck, that's a legitimate skill, and those people develop it over years. I mean, the only good ones are the ones that last for like 10 years or more of being massively underpaid, but doing a hugely technical, like, attention to detail oriented skill to find a vein. And that's in an ideal setting where, the person's sitting down and they've got their arm positioned correctly, and it's a nice, comfortable office, and they're semi more relaxed and, properly hydrated in a lot of cases because they've been instructed because they're going to get a blood draw. And to do that on the side of the road when you have only the barest training, I see a situation. It's not out of the realm of possibility where there's a cop that's like missing somebody's veins like 5 or 6 times, and then haul them into jail for having suspicion of heroin used for track marks on their arm because they just fucking gave them to him. I mean, it's absurd.
They miss quite frequently, and what's even worse is they'll get arterial blood. They'll stick it in and scrape it around and suck up all the capillary blood, which is arterial blood, or even sometimes even hit an artery. Rare cases, but occasionally, especially when they do back of the hand draws.
And they call the EMS, I guess, if you hit an artery, because you're gonna know it's gonna, yeah. Because
the ones in the back of the hands can take a little, like they won't really quite spurt out. They clot pretty quickly because they're pretty small arteries. But a lot of times cops will do hand draws and they'll get arterial blood. And there's been studies that show that arterial blood can have significantly more blood in it, or more alcohol in it, than venous blood. So they're artificially inflating the blood alcohol content just by being incompetent.
I'm going to have to double check on the arteries in the hand thing just because it's been forever. I draw my own blood at work, but I just do that for, because we do some correlation testing and stuff. And every now and then I have to do some exotic shit with the coagulation studies. And so I'll draw my own blood. But drawing from the hand, you can fuck somebody up. I mean, there's so many little tendons and shit in there. You're always supposed to. Yes. And obviously the cop isn't going to go, to prison or get, sued into the poorhouse over like giving somebody a permanent disability in their right or left hand. So, oh God, this gets worse and worse the more I find out about it.
Yeah. And we haven't even gotten into DREs or drug recognition experts. That's a whole nother level of pseudoscience and racism that's literally I don't have time to get into today. I was going to see if we had any questions and then.
Yeah, let's put it out to the crew and kind of wrap up the live part. Let's see. Beaker was actually wanting to get into the DRE thing, right? And he had a question about racism. Let's save that for another episode because we're going a little bit long already, and people sort of like zone out after an hour. So I think that's our audience's maximum attention span because given the blows to the head we've all taken. So yeah, I mean if anybody has any questions, just throw them into the chat because I'm looking at it right now. That's why my eyeballs aren't looking at the camera, all creepy as shit. And Derek can't even see my face here in this wonderful setup that we now have. Okay, question. So refuse field sobriety, then they'll force the breathalyzer, at least in Arizona, right?
So this is great. I love Arizona because this is where I'm licensed and I practice law. I'm also licensed in New Mexico, but that's a whole another thing. So you refuse the field sobriety test and you're at the side of the road. And then they're going to say, well, okay, we'll do a breathalyzer. And if it's the one that they're holding in your hand, you should never do that. All of the issues that the main breathalyzer has, the intoxilyzer has, are just replicated by magnitudes in the portable breathalyzer. There's no deprivation period. So if you're chewing on gum or you just burped or you have acid reflux disease or you literally just left the bar, took a swig of your beer and then left and have some alcohol in your mouth, the breathalyzer that they have in their hand cannot tell the difference. So it will read anything that you have in your mouth as alcohol. And then based on that totally unscientific piece of shit machine, the cop now has probable cause to arrest you. Whereas if you say no, they don't have any field sobriety tests. They don't have any portable breath tests. The only thing they have is your driving behavior, which shouldn't have been too bad. And the whether or not you allegedly had, odor of alcohol, bloodshot water, slurred speech. So don't do the field sobriety tests. Don't do the breathalyzer, the portable breathalyzer here in Arizona.
Okay. So, but I mean, that's just sort of general advice. And obviously you're not anyone's attorney here. So I know you usually provide that disclaimer. In case
yeah. I'm a lawyer, but not your lawyer. Nothing I say is legal advice, except for not doing field sobriety tests and a portable breath test in Arizona.
So best course of action if you get pulled over and you are sober. I mean, because if you get pulled over and you're drunk, fuck you, basically. But if you get pulled over and you are genuinely sober, but you might have had a drink or whatever, all these confounding factors, what would be a good course of action to take, like step 1 through before 7, before you end up, getting, shot?
Right. So first thing you got to know is what cops are looking for. They're looking for something called a difficulty dividing attention. So they'll ask you for, where you're going, where you're coming from. Hey, can I get your license, your registration, your proof of insurance? Oh, where are you coming from? Where are you headed to? Did you have anything to drink tonight? And they'll ask you all of these things in rapid fire succession while you're trying to locate 3 different documents to see if you can do it. And if you mess it up, that's a little check mark in their head that you might be drunk. Sometimes it's funny. Like I've not had any clients do this. I've seen in trials and such where defendants have handed people their credit cards or their health insurance cards or a Mickey Mouse card. Obviously, that's a little harder to explain away, but that's the first thing they're looking for. And if you're nervous, if you have anxiety around the police, like so many Americans justifiably have, and you're shaking, right? Like, what happens when you get anxious, right? Your higher executive brain function turns off, and you revert back to your lizard brain. So yeah, you might have trouble remembering the 3 things that you're gonna have to get, or if you have, say, a TBI, like most of our audience probably has. You have trouble with executive processing, which is putting things on a list and remembering how to do them. So that's it. But the main thing you got to know is when an officer approaches, they can, ask you for your license, your registration, your proof of insurance. You have to give it to them. You don't have to roll down your windows. Well, you have to roll it down, I guess, to hand them your shit, but you don't have to roll down your back windows. You don't have to roll down your front windows. You don't have to open your trunk. You don't have to do any of that. The only thing you have to do is provide those pieces of information and then exit the vehicle if they ask you to. You don't have to consent to anything. You don't have to answer any questions, and you shouldn't answer any questions. I mean, honestly, like I always hate those videos on YouTube of people being like, "Am I being detained? Am I free to go? Am I being detained? Am I free to go?" I hate those, but in a way, I'm like, well, hey, man, like at least you're invoking your rights. Like, fair enough.
Yeah.
So what I tell my family,
figure out something to fuck with you
if they're
about,
pulled over by police, license, registration, proof, insurance, be polite, comply.
Oh shit, we lost you just as we were getting important. Uh-oh. So what?
Your right to silence.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so you cut out for a second. So it's just like so recap the last 5 seconds of audio.
Yeah. So what I always tell my family and my wife and my friends is the only thing you should say to a police officer is, something polite like "Good afternoon, how you doing?" Or not even that. Just fucking ignore them. But if they keep being persistent or annoying, just say, "I invoke my right to remain silent. Would like to speak to my attorney." You have to specifically and unequivocally invoke your right to remain silent and your right to an attorney. Doesn't get more unequivocal than that than saying, "I invoke my right to remain silent." At that point, they cannot question you anymore. They're not supposed to question you. They do. We get all that thrown out in court. That's why people pay me the way that they do.
Nice. So it's like a magic spell that you say the words.
I mean, yeah, like it's not going to keep you from getting in trouble, right? Because if an officer has probable cause to arrest you, you're going to get arrested, right? And no magic word is going to stop that from happening. But what it helps you do is not incriminate yourself. And it helps you get me on the phone so I can teach you how to not incriminate yourself and to teach you to shut the fuck up and to do a couple other things that help get you released quicker rather than having to spend a night in jail. So that's DUIs. They're bullshit.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's been enlightening and disturbing. And I think I would hope everyone who has listened to this is going to drive slower and not be an asshole on the road for any reason and use their turn signals and stay out of the left lane except for passing and all those sorts of things because damn. Now
you should only drive exactly the speed limit if you drive or faster actually. Because driving slower than the speed limit is one of these nebulous clues of nighttime impairment that NHTSA has manufactured out of their ass.
Oh shit! Wow. So it would be.
This is all going to come back to bite me when I'm sitting for a cabinet position or trying to get confirmed. Like, do you fucking call the NHTSA a whole bag of dicks? Yeah, I did.
But just let us know. We'll bury this podcast. This episode's going down the memory hole. So. All right. Hey, this has been great. Yeah, I mean, what we're gonna do the thing about what we're gonna talk about, like the inherent racism of
the drug recognition evaluations.
There we go.
It was literally a program invented in 1977 by the LAPD to arrest black people.
That
pretty much like everything to do with drugs. Pretty much like everything to do with drugs. It only exists, or it only started to exist to lock up black people.
Oh, well, yeah, Nixon's war on drugs. The guy that came up with it admitted just straight up, yep, we wanted to go after the black people and the hippies, and nothing was more effective than giving us an excuse and going after drug use. I mean, it was a perfect cover because drugs are bad, right? Yeah, so.
Yeah, some drugs are.
Oh,
There's a show on Netflix called Midnight Gospel. It's like a real trippy, like acid trip type cartoon.
Was it by the Adventure Time guys? I think. I think
maybe. Something. But like the first episode is like a zombie apocalypse, and he's talking to this psychiatrist president guy, and like talking about drugs and how, you know, it's not really the drug, it's our relationship with it and how we use it that defines whether it's good or bad. It was a really provocative episode, but
yeah, we should have a drugs episode just because, I mean, I think there's the legal take on it, and then there's the personal autonomy take on it. You know, I mean, if you it's a valid perspective if you want to, you know, snort super glue up your nose or, you know, rub your eyeballs in like glass shards. I do it, man. If it, whatever, but there's a whole, we could do a whole criminal justice, like stream of like prostitution. I can't even begin to, okay. Prostitution. Okay. If you beat your wife in Arizona, you are probably going to get the first time 26 counseling sessions and probation. Damn.
And you're not going to do a day in jail. If you offer to suck someone's dick in exchange for money, or you ask someone to suck your dick in exchange for money, and yes, I'm using a male hypothetical because let's be honest.
Aren't that
let's be honest.
Johns out there.
Yeah. That person must do mandatory 15 days if convicted.
Damn. Wow. So if you pay your, no, I'm not even going to go down that. That's not funny. There's nothing funny at the end of that thought. So I'm going to stop. Hard stop.
Yeah. Yeah. Prostitution laws are extremely sexist. They just like the war on drugs, they cause much more harm simply by making it illegal. All of the bad, we'll talk about that on the prostitution episode.
Yeah, we should have a prostitution episode. That'd be fun. Maybe we should
get a prostitute.
I know, that's what I was saying. We'll have to find is like, hey, are you a prostitute? Well, just DM. No, I can't say that because there's too many things.
I have a friend who I think would have friends who are sex workers. So I think I actually might be able to get us a sex worker, which we should probably use that term.
Yes, yeah. I was going to say
prostitution is the crime. Prostitution is the bullshit crime, but sex worker is, sex work is valid and should be legal. We'll talk about that next time.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, well, I won't keep you any longer, and so bye.
Yeah, awkward white people high five.
Suck at this shit. So bye, hanging up.
Adios.
Thing. All right. Yeah. So, yeah, Derek is gone. I'm gonna just wind this down a little bit. So yeah, Arizona is. Well, keep in mind, Arizona is also where Sheriff Joe Arpaio, whatever his pronunciation of his last name is, Arpaio, is from, and yeah, that guy was like a whole bag of rancid dicks. Like he was just. Yeah, he would fix that shit. No, he would just put a bunch of minorities in camps. That's what he would do, and out in the desert, and then say it was justice. So, but let's not get political here. That corrupt piece of felonious shit who didn't even know he was, admitted to a felony by accepting a pardon. So, get Roydie to talk about sex work as being legal in Canada. Roydie is not our official Canadian. We have other Canadians. We have more people in Canada. I mean, we had a whole crew and that would get together. And there was a time when, what's his name? Ronan 79, clocked pissed off in the head. Pretty solid. Which is why his jokes are terrible. Piz still occasionally posts stuff to our Instagram and Facebook pages once in a while. So like and subscribe or follow us on those platforms. Whatever, I don't know. Am I gonna go brush my teeth now? Yeah, well, my mouth does feel dirty. I've been eating Twizzlers. I don't know if you've noticed. I'm on a Twizzler kick lately. Arpaio, Arapio, whatever. Yeah, the sheriff of the tent camps. You know, hey, Bullshudo, Twizzler mouth. Bullshudo was sued in Maricopa County by some fuckwit a while back, and Sam Browning like squashed that shit out of that because the dude's a genius, and we need to have him back on the podcast to talk about stuff. He's a good dude up there in Connecticut. But he all the way from Connecticut, he just filed whatever he needed to do and just got that dumbass lawsuit where whatever. I don't even remember what they were trying to sue us about, but been sued so many times I can't even talk about some of them. Yeah. Let me double check. Any other comments coming through from the YouTube? I don't see shit over there. All right, y'all. We're going to try and schedule a, yeah. Okay. So you're right. Go to the forums, bullshit it on forums and click the upgrade button. It is less than a cup of, I don't know, overpriced Frappuccino bullshit, or kombucha or slice of avocado toast or whatever you millennials out there on Twitch, eat. So I'm kidding. My avocado toast is fucking excellent and everybody should eat it. So this intergenerational shit is just keeping us at each other's throats instead of going after the real enemy. People who can't science good. Yeah, forums, join forums, bullshooter.net. Come on, we're a wretched hive of scum and villainy, but you're welcome there, as long as you don't run off screaming. And there's an upgrade button if you want to contribute to the site. We're still waiting on the final paperwork to come back from all the evil government overlords to have this officially recognized as a educational media foundation, because we have been educating people who desperately need it for the longest time. And that will make the contributions tax deductible. So seriously, if you want to help the work, all this shit costs money. So this shit, that shit right there, the fancier lights and the fact that I'm doing this, yeah, and having guests and paying for forums, and God knows you do not want to see the Excel sheet that I have been working on to track our bills. But oh God, yeah. So yeah, hey, whatever you can chip in or don't. I'm terrible about begging for money. I mean, or just don't fucking chip in. Let's hang out. Come talk on the forums and freeload off of this. I pay for this shit myself anyway. So and we've got a handful of loyal contributors. So I need to start recognizing those dudes, because some of them have been like chipping in through our old PayPal account for years now, and I owe you guys like all kinds of swag and stuff. I mean, shit, I should send those dudes the fucking sign. Anyway, I'm just rambling here. It's not what I'm good at. Bye.